Friends. We all have them, and they all mean different things to us all. Some of us have friends that are closer than family members, and in a sense, become your actual family. Some friends we hate to love, and couldn't live without them. There's your best friend who you end up doing all kinds of stupid shit with, and the bond between you only grows stronger in the wake of any consequences. Another kind of friend we all have is the one who gives you the advice you should always listen to, but rarely do. For me, this was my longtime friend who I count amongst my besties, Nick P. I've known Nick P for 20 years now, and he's never let me down in the advice department. He's a Kreskin-like idiot savant when it came to dispensing helpful information that could potentially make my life easier. I only wish I had started listening to him years ago, because I would have been spared a multitude of discomfort. Several years ago, I was battling a deeply ingrained ailment that had plagued me from a young age, known as poop anxiety. I didn't know why it happened to me, but for whatever reason, my brain and bowels couldn't get on the same page when it came to crapping outside my personal toilet. I knew it wasn't healthy, as I would often hold in my bowel growlers for as long as 8 hours at a time if I happened to be at work. This would result in a great deal of discomfort, accompanied by unprovoked moodiness and calf cramps. I knew I couldn't live my entire life like this, but I lacked the drive and wherewithal to move past it. If it hadn't been for Nick P., I would be another exploding bowel statistic right now. A few years back, Nick P., myself, and a couple other friends were going to Fitzgerald's to see one of my favorite local bands, Skeleton Dick. We met at my house for some pre-gaming in order to ensure our brains were lubed and ready to accept the excellent punk rock majesty into our minds. Once we had appropriately prepared ourselves, we hopped into Nick P.'s sexy silver Civic and headed to the show. I called shotgun and jumped in front of the seat, into the front seat. But as I buckled my seatbelt, I felt a familiar, uncomfortable feeling bubble in my gut. Uh-oh, I said out loud, but unintentionally. What? Asked Nick P., backing out of the driveway. I think I have to take a shit. He stopped the car and put it in park. If you have to take a shit, then you should take a shit. Otherwise, you'll be thinking about it all night. I wish I had put the stock in what Nick P. said to me that it deserved, but I was blinded by pride and compromised by alcohol. Nah, I'll be fine. You sure? Yeah, let's go. And with that crucial error in judgment, we were on our way to the show. We arrived a few minutes later, and things were starting to get into full swing. The show was packed, and everyone appeared to be having a good time. That is, everyone but me. My gurgling urge had not subsided, and in fact had grown more intense on the short drive over. I became suddenly aware that I was not dealing with the regular run-of-the-mill bowel movement. This was going to be a full-blown, white-knuckling, cold sweat-pouring, goosebump-inducing, hot splatter squirt storm. The show was downstairs, and I was standing out back with my friends, unable to focus on anything that was being said. I could not afford to lend any mind share to conversation for fear I would not be able to hold back my impending crisis. A Lone Star bottle dangled limply from my left hand, but was for aesthetic purposes only since drinking it was out of the question. I was maintaining a delicate balance of the liquids inside me already, and adding more would increase the possibility for disaster. Nick P. launched into one of his many hilarious stories, and I mumbled something as I pushed my way inside, unsure what I'd even gone to do. I thought that maybe if I could step away for a second and really focus, I would be able to will away the most pressing call from nature. It was no use, though, as goosebumps pushed out in large, fleshy lumps and pulled my skin so tight I thought it would split and fall away. Sweat was starting to become a problem, and it sprung from my head like plump, round base jumpers. My shirt was starting to soak through and stick to my skin, but nothing compared to the swampy bog of stench baking away in my jeans. I was going to have to do something, and I was going to have to do something fast, because now I was officially playing a game of beat the clock. I couldn't leave since I didn't drive, and even if I had, I'm positive I wouldn't have made it home in time. I was going to have to lift my self-imposed ban on pooping in public if I wanted to make it out of this alive. I pushed my way through the crowd on the way to the bathroom, moistening everyone I came in contact with my poop sweat. I pushed open the bathroom door and my heart sank. Not only was there a line of crusty punk dudes, but the conveyances available were not going to be sufficient in handling my problem. There were 2 urinals, but only one was in service, and 1 stall, only I wouldn't even go as far as to call it that. There was 1 wall, no door, and an overflowing toilet with no seat attached. This wasn't going to do. This wasn't going to do at all. I backed through the door and made my way outside of Fitz, hoping some solution would present itself to me. My stomach was cramping over on itself again, and I was very close to crying as I paced the sidewalk, trying to look like I was doing anything other than holding my shit in. What the absolute fuck was wrong with me? I was a grown man standing outside of a punk rock show trying to hide my tears while viciously squeezing my ass cheeks together. This was either the most punk rock thing ever, or the least, depending on how you looked at it. But I didn't have time to dissect the intricacies of what makes punk punk in that moment. That's when I started to speed walk down the sidewalk. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to go somewhere. A few minutes later, I realized I was in front of Onion Creek, and my feet carried me inside to the bathroom without giving me a choice. It wasn't as private as I would have liked my first time, but it was infinitely better than the one at Fitz, and it was going to have to do. Now, I could tell you about what happened in that lonely Onion Creek bathroom stall, but that's not what this story is about. This story is about friends, the significance they hold in your life, and how important that is. This entire situation could have been avoided had I just listened to Nick P. and took the pearls of his wisdom to heart. It sounded so simple at the time, and sometimes the simplest advice turns out to be the most important. Ever since that day, I have let go of my hang-ups and become a proud public pooper, relenting to the urge any time and any place it presented itself. My life has been so much better for it, and I owe it all to Nick P. He's gone on to give countless other gems of advice that I followed without a second thought, such as never eat eggs from a motel continental breakfast, don't leave your cell phone on your dashboard while driving with your windows open, and one-eyed girls give the best head. The last one is more of an affirmation than advice, but I trust Nick P. implicitly, and every time my bare ass hits the unwashed porcelain of another public toilet, I think of him and smile. Thank you.